Look down at your own legs for a second. They bend, they lift, they strike the ground and pull away again. It's clumsy compared to something else you use every single day. A wheel. Wheels barely touch the ground. They roll instead of stepping. They waste almost no energy fighting gravity with every stride. So here's the question that should bother you more than it does. In 4 billion years of life on Earth, across millions of species, why did nothing ever evolve one? Not one running animal. Not one flying animal. Nothing with a spinning limb rolling it across the ground. Not a single vertebrate. Not a single insect. Not a single creature in the fossil record going back hundreds of millions of years. You'd expect at least one. Evolution has produced eyes at least 40 different times, independently, in completely unrelated lineages. It built wings on insects, on birds, and on bats, 3 separate times from scratch. If wheels was such an obvious advantage, nature had every opportunity to stumble onto them too. It never did. And the reason isn't that evolution couldn't imagine it. The reason is that a wheel breaks the most basic rule every living body depends on. Start with the smallest scale. Because this is where the story gets strange. Wheels do exist in biology. You're carrying rotating machinery in your own cells right now. Bacteria like E. coli swim using a structure called a flagellum, and at its base sits something biologists call a rotary motor. It's an actual spinning axle, powered by a flow of ions instead of electricity, and it can spin thousands of times per minute. Physiologist Howard Berg spent decades studying exactly how this motor works, and what he found is remarkable. It's a true, continuously rotating wheel, built from proteins, sitting inside a single cell. No gears cut from metal, no axle forged in a factory, just folded protein machinery, spinning freely, keeping a bacterium alive. So the smallest life on Earth solved this problem. Multicellular life never did. Why would something work at the scale of a single cell and completely fail to scale up to a bird, a dog, or you? Here's the piece that explains everything. A single bacterial cell doesn't need blood vessels. It doesn't need nerves. It doesn't need a constant supply line feeding the rotating part fresh energy and oxygen while carrying waste away. One cell can rotate a structure freely because nothing living needs to cross that rotating joint. Now imagine trying to build a wheel-shaped leg on a dog, or a bird, or a human. For that wheel to work like a real wheel, it would need to spin freely, all the way around, forever. But your body needs to keep it alive. Blood has to reach it. Nerves have to control it. And blood vessels and nerves are not They cannot spin around and around without eventually twisting themselves into a knot and tearing apart. Evolutionary biologist Michael LaBarbera published a well-known paper in 1983 addressing exactly this puzzle. And his answer keeps showing up in biology courses to this day. A rotating part connected to a living body hits a wall that a machine doesn't. A car axle doesn't need to stay alive. A leg does. So biology found a workaround instead. Not a full wheel. A shape that rolls without ever spinning freely. Pangolins curl into a tight ball and roll downhill to escape predators. Certain caterpillars and spiders do the same thing when threatened. Tumbleweeds detach entirely from their roots and let the wind roll them across open ground, scattering seeds as they go. And dung beetles push and roll a perfect sphere of dung across the ground for enormous distances, using their back legs like a machine built for exactly one task. Notice what all of these examples have in common. Nothing is spinning on a fixed axle attached to a living body. A ball rolls once and stops, or it detaches from the organism entirely, the way a tumbleweed does the moment it lets go of its roots. None of them need a permanent, continuously rotating joint kept alive with blood and nerves. There's a second problem too, and it has nothing to do with biology and everything to do with the ground itself. Wheels are extraordinary on flat, smooth, hard surfaces, roads, floors, rails. Humans had to build all 3 before wheels became genuinely useful, which is exactly why the wheel took so long to catch on in early civilizations. Despite being a fairly simple concept, without a road, a wheel is just a circle that gets stuck in mud, sand, rocks, and roots. Nature does not build roads. Forest floors are covered in roots and fallen branches. Deserts shift under every gust of wind. Mountains are nothing but obstacles stacked on top of each other. A leg can adapt to all of that instantly, lifting over a rock, gripping a slope, adjusting mid-stride to a sudden dip in the ground. A wheel can only fail at all of it, because a wheel has exactly one shape and exactly one way of moving. This is a huge part of why, even in human engineering, legged robots are now catching up to wheeled ones for rescue missions in rough terrain. Researchers building search and rescue robots have spent years discovering the same lesson evolution already learned hundreds of millions of years ago. On broken ground, legs beat wheels almost every time, so put the 2 problems together. A living wheel would need a permanent rotating joint that somehow keeps itself supplied with blood and nerves without ever tearing itself apart. And even if evolution somehow solved that, the wheel would still be worse than legs on almost every surface an animal actually needs to cross. That's not a small obstacle. That's 2 independent walls, either one of which is enough to end the idea completely. But there's a deeper reason too, one that goes beyond biology and mechanics. Evolution doesn't design from a blank page. It only ever modifies what already exists, one small working step at a time. Every trait alive today had to be an improvement over the version before it. In a creature that was already surviving and reproducing, a half-formed wing is still useful for gliding, or for warmth, or for display, which is why wings evolved gradually through working intermediate stages. A half-formed eye that can only detect light and dark is already a massive advantage over no eye at all, which is why so many separate lineages evolved eyes independently. But a half-formed wheel is nothing. There is no functional, half-rotating leg. There's no evolutionary stepping stone between a leg and a wheel, because the moment it starts rotating freely, it disconnects from the very body that has to keep it alive. Evolution can only walk toward solutions one useful step at a time, and there is no path of useful steps that leads to a wheel. So the wheel isn't missing from nature because nature lacked the imagination. It's missing because life is a continuous, connected, living system, and a freely spinning part breaks that connection the instant it starts turning. Machines don't have that problem. A car axle can spin forever because nothing inside it needs to stay alive, which means the thing that makes a wheel so useful to you, the fact that it detaches from the messy, adaptive, self-repairing rules of biology, is the exact same thing that keeps it from ever appearing in biology at all. So the next time you're driving somewhere, or rolling a suitcase across a floor, remember what you're actually holding. Not a shortcut nature somehow overlooked. A solution built specifically for a world without blood vessels, without nerves, and without a body that has to stay alive while it spins.